Good morning, everybody. I've been playing football for as long as I can remember, whether it was flag, tackle, or Madden on my PS4 at 2 o'clock in the morning. But what if I told you that I was a performer first? At the age of 6 years old, I began my career performing by joining a Mexican folklore, also known as ballet folclórico, dance company called Mexico Danza. Here, I was taught and given the steps and choreography of very well-known Mexican regional dancing. It was truly beautiful. I even took a few ballet classes to perfect my footwork and posture. All my family, aunts, uncles, cousins, sisters, and parents had all participated in this cultural tradition. I was no different from them. However, to everyone else, I wasn't allowed to think things were beautiful unless I was talking about cars or women. The concept of machismo comes into play. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it is a strong or aggressive sense of masculine pride, an exaggerated masculinity, if you will. As a young boy, seeing men all over TV never cry, dance, or perform really made me question what I was or not allowed to show the rest of the world. Boys aren't supposed to be dancing when there are other things like sports. Boys aren't supposed to be performing in front of crowds when there are things like jobs, working, and getting money. Boys weren't supposed to know how to move their hips, because if they did, they were gay. So I was deemed gay because I was doing something that nobody else was doing, because I was doing something different. Society said I was doing the wrong things, that I was doing things only girls should be doing. So I quit. I quit in the 5th grade. I abandoned this section of my life because society told me to, not because I wanted to. I loved it. I loved walking in and performing. Once 6th grade rolled around, I had gotten to a certain point where I was just not the same person. I wasn't healthy. I was getting bigger, slower. It was bad. I remember one time in 6th grade, I got my mile, you know when you run the mile? They gave me the paper back. It didn't even have a time. It said DNF or did not finish. It was horrible. This led me to the world of tackle football, to the San Leandro Crusaders. Here, I would learn the values and lessons of what it was like being on a team with a bunch of other guys. I was a bench warmer my first year, but I'm grateful for it. I sat back and watched the better guys show me how it had to be done. The strenuous practices, what it seemed endless running, and the constant need of water and certain foods led me to a new life, a life where I would follow a certain routine up until my senior year of high school. As soon as sports were incorporated into my life, people wanted to talk to me more. The conversations would be like this, ready? Oh, hey, you're a big kid. You play any sports? Me? Nah, I do dancing instead. Oh, nice. They sounded a bit more like this. Oh, hey, you're a big kid. You play any sports? Me? Yeah, I just started playing football for the San Leandro Crusaders. Oh, man, what position? Are you going to play in high school? Are you going to play in college? Are you any good? Now, don't get me wrong. I love football, and I love every single aspect of the game. But as a man, people automatically put you on a higher pedestal if you do something with that masculinity. Have you ever noticed that people will treat a man differently if he has bigger muscles, is really strong, or if he's a great athlete? Football was my masculinity being expressed to the world in order to prove that I am worthy. Worthy of what you say? I still do not know. What validates and qualifies one to be a man? What makes someone manly? People only cared about half of the world I lived in, but that's partly on me. I hid that section of my life in order to mask what I fell in love with first: performing, stepping onto a stage, and dancing. I was scared of what people would say. When high school came, I was told that there are only 2 seasons: football season and non-football season. When it wasn't football season, after all my schoolwork was done, I trained and I worked out hard. And when it was football season, I stayed every day after school and practiced until it was dark outside. Not only did I have to study for my math and English class, but I had to study for a new opponent that I would have to face every single week. My junior year of high school came around, and I was given a choice, more like a chance. I could either A, get a job, make some money, and, train for my senior season, right? Normal things. Or I could join the spring musical. This was it. This was my chance to get back on stage, and I hadn't been there for such a long time. I was nervous. I remember being told about it, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I decided to do the spring musical, but I didn't really express it or say that I was in it up until the word spread, simply because of what I was scared of happened. I was met with remarks, gestures. You're doing the musical? Or, you're doing that girly stuff? Yeah, I was. And what they said, it hurt. It hurt a lot, actually, because it wasn't just strangers or people that I rarely talk to, but some of my closest friends. But people have been doing this for such a long time. People have been breaking societal norms for forever. I want to talk about two people specifically who broke barriers that had never even been touched before. Napoleon Jennings and Quentin Perrin. These two men revolutionized and made history in the Professional Football League, the NFL, in 2018, and would soon become faces of hope and empowerment for people all over the world. No, they didn't break rushing records, nor passing, but they became the first ever male cheerleaders to step onto a professional football field and perform in front of thousands. The Los Angeles Rams hired the two men to become cheerleaders on their cheer squad, breaking the norm that only women were allowed to cheer. These two men revolutionized the NFL, and they weren't even players. It is because of their action and their skill that made an impact on a different type of audience, an audience that's made up of people who may not understand the complexity of football, the audience of people who don't want to be big and strong enough to play football, but the ones who want to do, try, and reach that one thing, whether it's stepping onto that dance floor, stepping onto the field, or speaking up. We all have that one thing that we want to do, but we're scared to do it because we don't know how people will act, how people will react. Nothing's holding us back except ourselves. We are capable. We control our destiny. That isn't to say that the support of others isn't necessary. People need people. People need a foundation. People need people to push them. People need a voice. I promise that's all it takes. When you have all those things, you're not worried. The amount of one support gives to another is limitless. It doesn't matter what the world has to say. When the people you care about tell you everything will be okay. And that's all that I needed. I had my family. I knew that they were going to support me no matter what I did. I'm blessed enough to have parents and siblings who cared and would support me with no matter what I did. But I needed more than that. I needed people my age, people who weren't family, people who I would see on a daily basis just support me. If I was given the same amount of support as some of my other friends did, I wouldn't have quit dancing. If I wasn't seen differently than my friend who was great at sports, I wouldn't have quit dancing. If the machismo culture hadn't pressured me, I wouldn't have quit dancing. But deciding to do that musical was the best decision of my life. I was back on the stage, and I hadn't been there for such a long time. I was dancing, singing, and acting. I loved it. I remember the opening night. I was getting jitteries, and I was just all moving. I couldn't control myself. I was glad to be back, and I was happy. I was glad to leave the real world, even if it was just for a few hours. But I wasn't done there. I wanted to keep on performing, and I wanted to live both of my worlds and interests at the same time. So I joined the dance program here at Moreau. And it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. After all my late night football practices, I'd run up right to the dance studio to learn how to hustle, kickball change, and a whole lot of other dance vocabulary. It was tough, but it also made me realize that football and dance both require full concentration and focus. Making sure I dug my cleat into the turf in order to achieve the greatest gain of leverage wasn't that different from making sure my foot was properly placed in order to spin. Making sure my stance on the line of scrimmage was balanced wasn't that far off from making sure my posture was open and straight. Making sure I was locked in on every single play wasn't that different from making sure I was ready for all the counts, movements, and steps I would have to make on stage to ensure I wouldn't mess up. And although most of you may not believe that dancing is a sport, trust me, it is. I've sweat, cramped, gotten blisters, and I've been mad while dancing. Dancers are athletes, and they can get hurt trying to perfect their movements. But I didn't care about all the cramps, blisters, sweat. I didn't care about any of that because I was back on the stage, and I was doing something that I loved. I didn't care what anyone had to say because this is my life. I was the football player who danced. So this is what I call for every single person in this room to start doing as soon as they walk out those doors. Just do it. Be relentless. Keep going despite what the world has to say. Despite all the negativity, hate, and all the background noise, this is your story. We're off to college next year, and I don't know half of the things to expect. But what I do know is that I'm not going to let anyone tell me what I am or not able to do. Thank you.